Libra, Scorpio, and Taurus are going to weather the eclipse storms of August 2026 the best, while Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and even Gemini and Sagittarius might struggle to make the necessary changes that these eclipses are going to demand of us the most. Hi, I'm Brittany, and you're watching Stars of the Month. Now, before we hop into which signs I think are going to do the best and the worst and why that is, I think we need to get some common ground first on what exactly is happening this month with a little bit of a horoscope. So we're going to do that first, and then we'll talk about the signs on the other side. So let's go ahead and let's hop in. I've set this chart for that new moon solar eclipse in Leo, which is going to occur almost halfway throughout this month. But I'm going to talk about a bunch of alignments. The first one I'm going to start with here is going to be Venus. Venus is going to enter the sign of Libra on August 6th, 2026. Now, this is a very good thing. It's a good thing because Venus is at home in the sign of Libra, where it really likes to be, and therefore functions very, very well. What can this bring? Well, Venus is more of the feminine principle, about receiving, about ease, and also too, I think, about letting things happen a little bit more naturally and easily in some way, especially with it being in Libra. Libra is correlated to music, to harmony, to rhythm in a lot of ways. And harmony and rhythm in some ways is, can be slower, but I think is more in flow with what the situation needs. Sometimes harmony and music is fast. Sometimes there's music and a song that's slow, right? And sometimes you get both in the same song that you're going with in some sort of way. And Venus can have a lot to do with our value systems. So one of the things I think that this is going to bring that's very positive at the beginning of this month is more of an ability to go with the flow and the rhythm of life with whatever it is that we're doing, and allow things in life to happen more naturally, whether that's fast, whether that's slow, whether that's both in the same day or week, and to go more with that. Not only is that what's going on here, but as we know, Venus and Libra also are especially about relationships too. So this can also be very good and very helpful for relationships, to have better relationships or smooth over any challenges in relationships that may have occurred last month while Venus is in Virgo as well. Okay, because Libra can also make us more diplomatic in relationships, more fair, more balanced, symbolized by the scales as well, which I think is going to work together, right? Not only are we feeling kind of more in flow, maybe we're feeling more balanced, more able to go with the fast and the slow pace of life and to balance that, but we're also going to be able to work with relationships in also a more fair and balanced way to kind of bring a lot of that together and to be more open to that. Not only is that the case, but Venus also has to do with money as well. And it's in Libra, a sign it likes to be in. So this can also indicate better things with money. Money also either us being more able to go with the flow or being more harmonious or smoothing things out there as well, which can also be very positive. So coming into this month, there's more of a calm, diplomatic, balanced approach, more able to kind of go with the flow of life instead of fight against it, which is great. Then as more time goes on, a few days later, August 11th, 2026, Mars is then going to leave the sign of Gemini and enter the sign of Cancer. Now, this is a little bit more of a challenging alignment because Mars does not like to be in the sign of Cancer and therefore does not function that well in it. Why is that Mars doesn't like to be in Cancer? Well, Mars is about action. It's about doing things. And Mars likes direct, linear action with a little more focus, I might say. And sometimes in Cancer, that's hard. Cancer is cyclical since it correlates to the moon, which has a cycle, and women, which has a cycle. It's more of these ups and downs in some sort of way, more circular, kind of moves in circles instead of a straight line here as well. Not only that, but Cancer being a water sign, is a lot about our emotions, can be very, very sensitive here too. So this can make it hard for us to do things and to get things done that it is that we might like because of our emotions. Our emotions don't want to do it or are triggered by it or don't feel good about it. That could be going on here. And we have a hard time being consistent, right? Doing something in a direct fashion as well. That can make us feel very frustrated with the Mars. Here, frustrated that we're not able to maybe make the progress as consistently as we might like, and that we've got so many emotions that are going on. Now, even though I need to note that this is definitely a challenging thing, I do think there's a higher purpose as to why this is happening, especially seeing Venus in Libra at the same time. Venus in Libra, remember, as we discussed, is more of a calm influence. It's not about pushing. It's not about forcing. It's about letting things happen in their own kind of way and time whenever it is that they need. Not only that, right? So this is more of a Venus energy we need to be leaning into this month and less of a Mars. Not only that, but I'm an evolutionary astrologer, which focuses on Pluto and the nodal axis. And Pluto for a long time, even though I know it's no longer there, was in the sign of Capricorn, which was opposite where Mars is going to be in Cancer this month. And Capricorn is about things obviously that are opposite Cancer, if it's opposite the sign. And Capricorn is not about our emotions. A matter of fact, with Capricorn being Saturn ruled, it's about stuffing our emotions away, ignoring our emotions so that we can do the practical thing or the right thing or the thing that should be done. Because Capricorn has a lot to do with rules, tradition, and responsibility. And I think with Pluto and Capricorn for a while, what was it, 2008 to 2021? That's the way we were. We were ignoring our emotions and trying to just do things and push things through that we felt like we should do because we had to get them done. And I think that created a lot of problems. You know, Pluto can create a lot of challenges and difficulty. I think that created a lot of problems. And in particular, it created a situation in which we did things because we felt like we had to do them that then brought a lot of things into our life that we didn't actually like, that we weren't actually emotionally connected to. They were just in our life because we felt like they should be and that that's the right thing to do. That made us feel very, very unfulfilled. So Venus in Libra, right, with Mars in Cancer, even though Mars does not like to be in Cancer, is helping us to correct that problem that spanned many, many years that was going on here. And to correct that problem of ignoring our emotions, right, to do the right thing by honoring our emotions a lot, feeling all of the feelings and constantly checking in with our emotions, even if our emotions are up and down, right? And even if sometimes that makes progress look a little weird. So what that means so far to me is that this month we're really trying to calm down, right? Ourselves, relationships, and money have a little bit more of like a rhythmic, flowy approach that's going to allow us to get more in touch with our emotions so that we can create a life that's more aligned with our emotions instead of ignore them and do things that we don't like, which has been going on, right, for a very, very long time, even if that's a bit uncomfortable because there's so many emotions that are going to come up, right? And even if it feels, right, a little weird or like we're not necessarily making the straight progress that we might like because of all these emotional ups and downs. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to talk about. A day after Mars enters Cancer, we've got a new moon solar eclipse here in Leo on the South Node. What is this? This to me is a little bit of a mixed bag. I want to say both a little bit good and a little bit challenging. Good in some ways because it's a new moon. I tend to like new moons, the significant moon phases. We've also got Jupiter in the sign of Leo where it hasn't been for 12 years. But a little challenging in the sense that the South Node is going to be there as well. And the South Node tends to indicate things that we kind of need to let go of that are no longer working for us as well. So I think this is going to be a little bit of both, something maybe a little challenging accompanied by something better, especially two eclipses are such big events that can be rather volatile. what is it here? Well, the South Node has to do with things we need to let go of. It's in Leo, where this is. Leo is about our identity. It's about maybe things that like how we saw ourselves, or maybe even Leo has to do with being a fire sign, things we used to like or used to enjoy or thought we liked and enjoyed, whether we actually did or not. That's going on. So this can ask us to let go of, I think, an old sense of self and old things we thought we liked. And again, I'm an evolutionary astrologer, so I'm going to put everything in the Pluto category here, to let go of these old behaviors where we were doing things just because we had to do them, right? And to let go of the attachment to that and in the pleasure we found in that. And the pleasure we found in that, maybe I need to note, was not that we loved doing the responsible thing. It's that doing the responsible thing gives you the respect and the adoration of others, which Capricorn also has to do with. So we're letting go of the old identity that did things just because we had to. It was respectable and traditional. And also maybe the attachment to some of the respect that came with that as well, so that we can move on, which can be a little hard. And not only that, but new moons are about new things, and solar eclipses can make that very big and significant. And Leo's about our identity. We're finding a new identity and new passions and new ways of enjoying life and approaching it. We're also getting more courage, Leo the lion, an ability to take risks. And I think, again, that's going to be more in this Cancer way, a little bit of the Libra, which is being more in flow and honoring more of our emotions, even if it's super triggering, and just happening in a weird way, with that Mars in Cancer there. Hey, not only that, but as we move on a week or so later, we're then going to get the Sun conjunct Mercury at the very beginning degrees of Virgo, right around here on August 27th to 28th, 2026 here. Now, in many ways, I like that. I like that because Mercury likes to be in Virgo. It's its home sign and its sign of exaltation. So it functions very well there. And the Sun and Mercury are very, very good friends. So in many ways, this can be a good thing. What is that? Well, when planets make a conjunction with each other, they really restart each other in their relationship to one another, start a new cycle in some ways, to kind of do it in a new or different way, similar to a new moon, which is a function of a conjunction too between the Sun and the moon, right? So this is also going to start a new cycle here. It's going to start a new cycle, sure, and our identity with the Sun there, which we've already mentioned with that eclipse in Leo, also with Mercury in the way that we think, and also too with Mercury in Virgo. Virgo has a lot to do with our habits and our routines, the way we behave on a regular and habitual basis, to kind of restart and kickstart those to be different, and I think ultimately better. And again, everything comes back to the fact that I'm an evolutionary astrologer. So you're going to get that type of astrology from me, which is going to correlate to the opposite point of Pluto, right? Because we were just talking about Pluto and Capricorn and Mars and Cancer, right? It's going to put us down there to start a new routine in which we are more and more in flow and more honoring of our emotions and checking in with our emotions more and more, even if, again, it is a little uneasy for us to do. So it's going to have us go more and more in that direction. Not only is it going to have us go more and more in that direction, because I am an evolutionary astrologer and everything comes down to Pluto at the end of the day, and in the nodes as well, but a lot of Pluto, but also too, because of the next eclipse we're going to have after that. Around the same time, actually, that the Sun conjuncts Mercury in Virgo, we're going to have the full moon, a lunar eclipse in Pisces on August 28th, 2026, somewhere around here near the North Node, which recently entered Aquarius. Now, I will say, I tend to like eclipses on the North Node better than the South Node as being more helpful for us to move forward. However, eclipses are still kind of stressful events, right? The ancients considered them very stressful events as well that can bring a lot of big changes that can also feel overwhelming. So I'm going to go with a little bit of both here at this eclipse. But what is the good? I'm going to go more that way. Well, Pisces gets along very well with the Cancer and the Capricorn that we were just discussing, right? And especially the Cancer, which is about honoring our emotions and getting more in touch with that. Not only does Pisces get along very well with Cancer because they're both water signs, but also too, Pisces is also a symbol of rest and of ease. It has to do with sleep, being correlated to Neptune. It has to do with honoring our emotions. It has to do with kind of taking it easy and being more in touch with our intuition and spirit. And an eclipse and this is a full moon, is going to push us more fully into that. And with the North Node around there, to learn those lessons where the North Node was for the past year and a half before it recently left Pisces and entered Aquarius. So it's going to push us to more fully master those lessons of Pisces, of being more at ease, of sleeping, of resting, of being more calm and being more in tune with our emotions. Okay. Going to push us more fully in that direction. Now, again, could it still feel a little uncomfortable? Yes. Right. With it being an eclipse, could it require us to make some adjustments with it being a mutable sign, right? And also an eclipse? Yes. And sometimes that can also be a little bit hard, but I think what we need to do, what we're going to do in order to move forward. Okay. So this is another confirmation to me that we're not learning this month to do things because we should do them or have to do them. No, what we're learning this month is to totally transform our identity and the way we act and behave in the world on a daily basis to honor more of our emotions, to be more in flow, right? Pisces is also a water sign, to be more at ease, more rest, and more in tune, right, with what it is that we're feeling instead of less of it that we're going to get a big helping of. Then we get to the next and the last alignment I'm going to talk about here, which is going to be the very end of the month, almost the last day. I think it's the last day, August 31st, 2026. And Venus is going to be towards the very end of Libra, and it's going to enter pre-retrograde shadow in Libra there. What does that mean? Now, it means that Venus is not retrograde yet. That's going to be, I believe, in November, and it's actually going to start retrograding in Scorpio, and then it's going to come back to Libra. But what that means is that Venus, at the very end of this month, is starting to slow down, preparing to go retrograde, and will be at the exact degrees that Venus will retrograde back over once it does go retrograde and then station direct on. And not only does it mean that, but what it does too is that when a planet enters pre-retrograde shadow, it starts to bring up themes that are eventually going to need to be retrograde, reworked, especially as Venus actually does go retrograde and move over it in a different and I think ultimately better way, or else why would it go retrograde? Here, what is it that's going to need to be reworked in a different and better way? Well, Venus is about our sense of self in a lot of ways, our values, what's important to us. It's also about relationships and money as well that's going on. And I think we're going to need to rework those, sure, in ways that are Libra, also ways that are Scorpio, right? Because that's where it's going to go retrograde. And I think too, in some of the Cancer ways with Mars there, that being the opposite point of Pluto for so long, Scorpio gets well with Cancer. It's going to be to rearrange more and more of those things, the relationships, the money, and our values to be more Libra, right? More calm, more rhythmic, more in flow. With the Cancer, more cyclical, more in tune with our emotions. With the Scorpio, also very emotional, be more in tune with that. And not only is it going to be that, it's going to bring a realization. Sometimes when planets start to slow down, right? Before they go retrograde, it can bring a realization of sorts that there's a lot more in my life that's going to have to change with relationships, with money, within my sense of self to support this new identity that we're getting this month, to support this new way of being, and that we're going to have to make a lot bigger changes than maybe we've already made in order to get there. Now, are the bigger changes to rework relationships, money, and our own value systems going to happen now? No, I think we need Venus to actually go retrograde in the coming months for us to actually make those big changes with relationships and with money, to be more in alignment with our emotions and more calm and rhythmic and all of that. I think we're going to need then, but this is the realization that very soon we're going to have to make a lot more significant sweeping changes in other areas of our life in order to do that. Okay. And not only is it that, but maybe to compare and contrast, because maybe some of you are like, okay, well, I thought that's what we were already doing this month. No, this month is about our identity and our perspective totally shifting towards honoring our emotions and only acting in a way that aligns with our emotions. The coming months are then, right? And this month is also about the realization that things are going to have to change to support that. The coming months, right, are about the actual changes, are about the actual changing of the relationships, of the money, of ourselves, to fully bring everything together in the way that we need in service of this new identity. So I hope that that's becoming clear there what's going on. I like to kind of repeat stuff just for me, my personal process. So that's what I think is happening here. This month, we're really kind of trying to find a more calm and kind of rhythmic approach to life where we follow more of our emotions, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the fast and the slows, and where we flow more with that and with ourselves and with our relationships, right? And with others, because we've neglected, I think, our emotions for so long and just did what we thought we should do, even if we weren't emotionally into it. Maybe out of status and respect, to get status and respect, that created a lot of problems. So we're trying to act very differently this month in order to correct that damage that's gone on and not create the same problems. And that's a very good thing. But even though it's a good thing, it's not what we're used to. And not only is it not what we're used to, but it can bring up a lot of emotions that can feel very overwhelming and very up and down. That can be hard for us to feel like we can focus and make consistent progress, even though we're on a good trajectory. And the more that we lean into this different approach, even if it's uncomfortable to kind of feel the highs and the lows of our emotions and is all over the place, the more we lean into it, the more we're drastically going to change our identity and how we think of ourselves and let an old one go that was acting in a different way. And the more we're going to get a totally different routine and habits and just way of living life that is more in touch with our emotions than ever before and more aligned. And once we more fully step into that identity and that way of doing things and that routine that's honoring our emotions and more in touch with it, then we're going to start to realize more and more that there are some things with relationships, money, and our value systems that are not aligned with this new identity that we now have in this new way of being, and that we're going to have to eventually change those in the coming months to be like that. And that we're getting closer and closer to the time we're going to actually have to deal with that soon over the course of the next few weeks and months there. Okay, now let's hop into the signs. What signs are going to be doing the best and the worst? Now, I have to tell you, this month was a little bit hard for me to figure out here, because at the very beginning of the month, we've got a lot going on in fire and air. We've got the Libra, Venus in Libra, right? We've got the Leo eclipse. Fire and air get along very well with one another, which indicates that the fire and air signs might do better. But then at the end of the month, the energy kind of switches over to earth and water, because we've got Mercury, the sun and Mercury in Virgo. We've got the eclipses in Pisces. That's going on. We've got Mars and Cancer, right? It kind of switches over into earth and water get along, as to where fire and air don't get along with earth and water. So I was thinking like I could do it that way and put like the air and fire at the beginning and then the earth and water doing better at the end, those signs. But I was like, I don't know if that's quite the way that it's going to work out. And I wanted to know which sign is going to weather the whole month better. Which sign is going to be able to not just do better at the beginning or better at the end. Which one's going to weather the whole month better? And what I think I've determined is that the sign I think that's going to be able to weather the whole month the best is going to be Libra. Okay, that's because you've got Venus in your sign here. That's going on. And that's very good. It's in its home sign, right? And even though Venus is going to enter pre-retrograde shadow in your sign, it's not going to happen till the last day of the month. Okay. The very end. So I'm going to put you as having the best month here, being able to work with it. And why is that? Well, you Libra are about balance the scales, which means you can do a lot of different things, right? You can do things that are fast. You can do things that are slow. You can maybe there's an old way of doing things, right? That's more based on rules and traditions. And then there's another way that's based on your emotions. I think you're going to be a lot better at balancing and negotiating, right? Because you are a Libra, balancing the scales, balancing and negotiating these very different ways of being that we're trying to come to and we're trying to get to here to work with that. Not only that, but again, Libra is also about negotiations. Venus is about relationships and money. So I think that you're also going to be able to better negotiate, maybe even communicate with other people about these changes that might be going on. And your skills might be very helpful that other people might rely on in order to help them work through these things. So Libra, I put you at the top of the list when it comes to that. here. Another sign that I think I'm going to put at the top of the list here is going to be Scorpio. I'm going to put Scorpio as also doing very well here. The reason why I'm going to put Scorpio as one of the best this month is not because of the beginning of the month, right? Leo and Scorpio square, and we've got that solar eclipse in Leo that's going on, but it's really because of a lot happening towards the end of the month. When we start to get the eclipse in Virgo, and when we get the sun conjunct Mercury and we get the eclipse, the sun conjunct Mercury in Virgo and the lunar eclipse in Pisces towards the end of the month here. And then we've got Mars in Cancer, right? We even have Mars in Cancer on August 11th. Scorpio is going to be able to handle that much better because your sign, Scorpio, it sextiles Virgo and it trines Pisces, where that Pisces eclipse and the Virgo stuff is going to be. And it also trines Cancer. So you're going to be able to work with a lot of this energy, even the bad energy of the Mars and Cancer, much better than some of the other signs. And not only that, but at the end of the month, you're really going to do well. So even if your month starts out a little rough, you're going to be able to come out on top better than the others here because you're going to be able to work with all of this stuff. Why are you going to be able to work with it? Well, Scorpio, you are a sign of change, permanent change and transformation. That's ultimately what's needed. We need to permanently change our identity. We need to permanently change our behaviors to be more aligned with our emotions, more aligned with our identity. And you are going to be good at making that change and unafraid to make that change and to going deep to the depths of your emotions to deal with it all here, which I think is going to put you here on top and really help you out. And you're the sister sign to Libra because you're right next to it. So that means that you're also going to be able to work a little bit with that Libra too, that I think is going to be helpful. There. And with you also being about relationships and money, Scorpio, you're not going to be afraid to kind of also deal with relationships and money to get where you need to go. Now, the next sign I think is going to do fine as here is going to be Taurus. Okay. I don't put you as good as Libra or Scorpio, but I think you're going to fare okay. Part of that is because you are ruled by Venus, and we've got Venus here in Libra, its home sign, this month. So I think that's also going to help you out a little bit, Taurus, to feel a little more calm, to feel a little bit more grounded. You as well, being an earth sign, are also going to do very well at the end of the month when we get the Virgo and the Pisces stuff and when Mars is still in Cancer, because you also sextile and trine those signs too. Right? You trine Virgo, you sextile, right? You get along well with the Cancer. You're also going to be able to weather that much better at the end too. That I think is going to be very, very good here. And what that means, how are you going to be able to do it? Well, Taurus, you are an earth sign. You have a calm, grounding presence. I think there's something about you that's going to be able to stay more calm and grounded through some of these changes that are needed. You're also a Venus ruled sign that's about receiving. I think you're going to be a little more receptive to some of the changes that need to be made here, especially towards the end of the month, and maybe some of the other signs will be too. So that puts you at the top. Which ones now for me are going to go more towards the bottom, the hardest of the month here? Well, I'm going to have to put a lot of my cardinal signs, right, other than Libra, which we already talked about, because Mars is in Cancer, right? A sign it doesn't like to be in. This to me is the most definitively challenging alignment happening this month here. That's going to make it hard for Cancer because it's in your sign, right? Where Mars does not like to be. It's going to make it hard for Capricorn because it's opposite Capricorn. And it's going to make it hard for Aries because it squares Aries. And also Mars is the ruler of Aries. And we've got it here in a sign it doesn't like to be in. So going to make it very difficult here. How is it going to make it very difficult? Well, Cancer, Mars is going to trigger a lot of your emotions, right? And push your emotional buttons. And in some ways that's a good thing because we need to be honoring our emotions, right? But could be a little bit uncomfortable. Also could be a little bit uncomfortable to start to honor your emotions after you felt like you couldn't, or other people made you feel bad for it for so long. So it could also be a little bit of a hard adjustment for you to kind of get more in touch with your emotions when you felt like people were against you for so long. Not only that, But Capricorn, it can be hard for you because you're not usually in touch with your emotions, being an earth sign, right? And Pluto's been in your sign for a long time as well. So this could also feel very uncomfortable for you, especially with Cancer and Capricorn. You've been a big deal with Pluto in Capricorn and opposite Cancer for a very long time. So the two of you are in the middle of really a big change that's been going on in the astrology for a long time. That's kind of like the crux of the issue here that needs to be worked out. So there's a lot of, I think, direct confrontations within yourself, maybe even relationships too, with some of this going on with you being opposite signs here. A lot of deep emotions, deep feelings that can be very hard, and a very big change in the way that things are behaving and with relationships that I think you're going to have a difficult time making because of the long history of the past that we've been through. And then Aries, because you kind of square all this, you're going to get caught up in the mess. And I think you're also going to have a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out, which way to do things, and maybe want to fight against honoring your emotions a little bit here as well. Not want to listen to your emotions, or not like that you're feeling so emotional and really frustrated that maybe you're not able to move forward without checking in with your feelings. So I'm going to put you three as some of the worst because of that Mars in Cancer, right? And the Venus is going to protect Libra from that. Okay. What other signs? I think Gemini and Sagittarius might have it a little rough too. I need to note. I think a big part of that is the eclipses and the energy at the end of the month. We've got the Sun and Mercury and Venus. We've got the eclipse in Pisces. That's going to square Gemini and Sagittarius. That's going to put you in a bit of a hard spot there. Mercury and Virgo is also going to square Uranus and Gemini, which I didn't talk about. That can also be a little bit of a challenge there too. So I'm going to put you as a little bit more difficult, maybe not as difficult as Cancer, Capricorn, and Aries, but having some sort of challenge there too that's going on, right? Also, I think going to get caught up in which way to do things. How do I do things? In what way? Maybe having that difficulty adjusting. And it's not because you're not flexible. The two of you are mutable signs, but I think the problem here is that sometimes there's a little too many options, right? With the Gemini, sometimes the Sagittarius can be very opinionated, right? Can get stuck on certain beliefs and things, too. So I think there's, right, in the Sagittarius is sometimes can have problems putting wisdom together, right? To synthesize what needs to happen. So I think there's also a little bit difficult there for the Gemini and Sagittarius. You might feel very overwhelmed by this change and how it needs to happen and all the options, and how to put all the pieces together there. That can be hard. And the ones in the middle, now I'm going to put the ones in the middle are the ones that are going to be directly affected by the eclipses, which is going to be Leo and Aquarius, right? Because we've got an eclipse in Leo, which means the opposite sign is Aquarius, right? And we've got an eclipse in Pisces, which means the opposite sign is Virgo, right? So I'm going to put you four signs in the middle, and I'm going to put you in the middle because I think there's, eclipses by the ancient astrologers were considered to be stressful events because they bring big life changes, and sometimes these are good, right? But even the good ones are still stressful. So I'm going to put you in the middle. And not only am I going to put you in the middle because, eclipses are stressful events there, but because I think these eclipses in particular are a bit of mixed bag. I think they're going to bring a bit of both. They're going to bring something good, but maybe at the expense of something else. So you might have to lose something that you maybe don't want to lose, but you're going to gain something different and something much better too. So it's going to put you in the middle here, maybe losing a sense of self, with the Leo and the Aquarius to kind of gain a new sense of self. And then with the Pisces and Virgo, it's kind of like losing a certain way of behaving, of being, of acting to kind of get another there. And I think that you'll be open to it, but it might just require you to kind of let go of that thing first before that can come in, which can be a little bit of a challenge there to work out. But again, remember, we are each a collection of all of the signs here, and we have all the signs in our chart in some way, shape, or form that's going on. So remember, this is not a death sentence. If you're feeling bad, that your sign is on one thing, know that it's not a death sentence. There may be something else in your chart that's protecting you. You can also act differently, right? And in order to kind of mitigate some of this stuff, which I think is we need to start to change our behaviors to be more in tune with our emotions and more aligned. And there's also another month coming, and your sign may be a good one here that's coming up. And I think I've said the cardinal signs had it rough last month too. You're gonna get a month where your sign's gonna be good if you just hang in there as well. So that is the stars of the month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next month for September 2026.